Good evening, Wheat Kings fans. Chase Johnston here, along with, from the Branded Sun, Mr. Perry Bergson. And Perry, I'm bringing you in here at the start of the offseason for the Brandon Wheat Kings because we need to recap the 2022-23 season. All right, now let's talk about the fun stuff, the positive stuff, the guys who maybe have elevated their games this season. And I think there was a lot of expectations on those 17 to 19-year-old players this year. Let's start with the obvious ones. A guy who's going to go in the first round of this year's NHL entry draft, Nate Danielson. And when I speak to the scouts, it's all about consistency out of Nate Danielson and the fact that he's a 200-foot player. Those are some of the best traits that Nate's going to have. I mean, he's going to be an easy pick for any NHL team.
You see a pro game there already. He's so smart, and there's been such an elevation in his game. Junior hockey, you can't be the same guy at 17 that you were at 16. He has made massive strides every year. And, you know, he's just a different player. You'd see, how many times did he pick up the puck, circle the zone, and then make a pass that you don't even know how he saw it? And then how many times was he the first guy back on a 3-on-2 or something? You know, yeah, he's an impressive player.
Next up would be Carberry native Carson Bjarnason, a top Manitoba-born player in the Wheat Kings Awards, and a goaltender who, frankly, could be the number one goaltender taken in this year's NHL entry draft. Now, Carson obviously came in lightning hot at the opening 2 months of the season. There was several games the Wheat Kings probably should have lost that they won because of Barney. What did you see at his play this year?
He was hot most of the time. I thought he played very, very well. But at the same time, you know, a 17-year-old goalie probably played more than they would have hoped he should have. Nick Jones came in and played very well at times, but it was almost like they wanted to play Carson while they had the hot hand. I wonder if he took all that pressure on himself, because how many games, like you say, did he win early in the season? And I wonder how much of that pressure he carried.
Third guy I want to talk about, and this is like, I would say maybe the second half of the season MVP for this Brandon Wheat Kings team, and that's Quinn Manti, a guy who wasn't on NHL Central Scouting's radar at the beginning of the year, was part of the midterm rankings.
You know, he got hurt last summer, and I think he had maybe a bit of a slow start coming into the year, but he was one of those guys who just got better and better. He played with Mason Ward off the hop. Mason Ward gets traded, Caden Cedric-Kang comes in, and it was weird. You know, they even have a practice together, and then they get on the ice, and it's like they have this instant chemistry. And I thought that actually Quinn Manti played his best hockey of the year with Caden.
Moving on to more talk about the future, and I know I brought up the name Brett Hyland. I mean, this is a guy who was a great depth player for the team last season, fit in as a top-line player this year, and just provided everything.
It was such a devastating blow to the Brandon Wheat Kings this year when Brett Hyland got hurt late in the year. You know, he's not a guy that it seems like anything comes easy to. He works for everything he gets, and I really admire that about him. You watch him skate. Is he a beautiful skater? No. Does he get there? He gets there in a hurry, and quite often he gets there angry, which is a nice attribute. 20-year-old
Brett Hyland, what are your expectations for him?
If he's healthy and feeling good, I think at least a 40-goal season. He scored at the U18 level in Alberta. He was an exceptional player there. And if you can kind of extrapolate from where a guy was when he was younger to where he is in his final junior season, he could be among the league leaders.
You know, let's also talk about more future players. You know, 16-year-old season is always a difficult one in the Western Hockey League. And for that 2020 draft class, Caleb Hadlin, Charlie Ellick, and Roger McQueen all had their differences in regards to how difficult this league was. First, we had Caleb Hadlin, who suffered a terrible lower body injury at the Canadian U17 tournament. Then you had Charlie Ellick. It's so tough to play as an elite defenseman at the age of 16. And Roger McQueen, who continues to grow, is starting to get used to his body. Expectations are high for all three of these players next year.
Caleb Hadlin could be a team captain here. I love the grit that he shows. He's scared of nothing. Charlie Ellick, you know, was exceptional at times, and at times he was a 16-year-old defenseman, and it's a hard league to be on the blue line at 16, because if you make a mistake, a good shot on net results, and it might end up in your net. Roger McQueen, it's hard not to be excited about what he could potentially bring. One of my theories is watch a player when he's 16 and the very best stuff he does, those moments of brilliance, can that be the guy he is at 19 or 20, on a more consistent basis? He did some really incredible stuff, but at the same time, this is a kid who grew into a 6'5" frame almost overnight, and he's pretty rail thin. So I think it's going to be incumbent actually probably on all three guys to get bigger and stronger during the summer.
Several of Roger McQueen's Team Canada U17 teammates went ahead by saying, watch out for him in a couple of years. He's going to dominate this league.
Well, that's something they always talk about, is how do you look against the guys in your own age group too? And, when he went to the U17s, he was fantastic.
So a lot to look forward there. We got a good taste of Joby Baummuller, the first-round draft pick in the 2022 draft. Joined the team full-time for a couple weeks there and probably had the second most ice time for 15-year-olds in the Western Hockey League, next to phenom Gavin McKenna of the Medicine Hat Tigers. For a guy like Joby, it didn't look like there was a 15-year-old on the ice. You kind of saw that he kind of was playing out there like an 18, 19-year-old.
I think the first thing I noticed about him was something I noticed about Braden Schneider back in the day. When he got here at 15, he's a thick kid. So many of these kids are, excuse the expression, beanpoles when they get here. They're very thin, and they're going to grow into their frame. He's a thick kid already. He is fearless on the ice. He shoots from anywhere. He could be the most gifted goal scorer on this roster, for the next 3 or 4 years.
One of the big things that needs to be replaced is the offensive firepower that Nolan Ritchie and Calder Anderson provided last year. Who's sort of fitting into that spot?
Every year you ask that question, who is going to fill the spot of X guy? This year's team, it was who's going to be Ridley Gray. On the back end, it was who's going to be Chad Nychuk and Vinny Iorio. You have to have guys step up every year. That's junior hockey. Is it a Brett Hyland scoring 40 or 50? Does Nate Danielson score more? You see more offensive production out of Nolan Flamin or a Dawson Pasternak. Guys just have to get better. As you get older in this league, especially in an overage spot, you have to produce.
In the meantime, he's Perry Bergson. I'm Chase Johnston, signing off, and enjoy your summer.